In 1978, Carmine Galante goes back to prison for violating parole. They should have held him there, clearly, because he was consorting with criminal associates violating parole. But Roy Cohn got him out of prison in record time.
So he got let out early '79. How that happened, I don't know.
He became very cocky, and amazingly, he goes on 60 Minutes, and his lawyer, Roy Cohn, gets to interview him and present this simple Italian man who likes only to be growing tomato vines.
Went to the country.
Good. What are you going to do when you get to the country?
Well, I mean, I planted peppers last week, now I'm going to plant tomatoes.
And this completely phony picture of this mob boss is ludicrous.
You think that had an influence on the federal judge when he held that you were right and the parole commission was wrong?
I think so.
He thinks the farmer ought to be able to see, right?
I think so. I mean, it's very well known that that's what I do.
He had his own rules, his own ways of doing things. He was earning money. He was also skimming money. But the mafia operates to make money, and in order to make money, you have to follow the rules. If you don't abide by the rules, there are repercussions.
July 12th, 1979 was a very hot day in New York. And a Cadillac was rumbling its way down streets of Bushwick, Brooklyn. There was a lot of street life going on. It was a typical day in Bushwick. This Cadillac makes its way down Knickerbocker Avenue and stops outside Joe and Mary Italian-American restaurant run by cousins of Carmine Galante. And Galante, who was well known there, made his way to the back, and there was a backyard garden. The bodyguards he had taken with him that day were Cesare Bonventre and Baldo Amato. And the mood was set for a relaxing afternoon.
The three men have eaten and now spend the afternoon relaxing beneath a yellow and purple umbrella, tucked away in a corner of the small sunlit garden patio. Leonardo Nardo Coppola, the 40-year-old drug dealer, and Carmine's two bodyguards, Baldo Amato and Cesare Bonventre, having finished their meal, joined the group. Amato sits to the left of Carmine, and Bonventre to his right. Cesare and Baldo, they often eat at Joe and Mary's restaurant, but Nardo showing up is a surprise to the restaurateur, Joe Turano. February of 1979, Nardo Coppola and Joe Turano fell out over a dispute involving Mary Turano, Joe's wife. The two no longer spoke, and Nardo has been banned from the restaurant. The two Zips, Cesare and Baldo, have somehow persuaded Nardo to join them, as investigators would learn, coming to believe that Nardo's attendance that day likely had been ordered. Better yet, fucking demanded. Also, Joe Turano is scheduled to leave that weekend to travel to Sardinia to meet up with his wife and another daughter, who are both there on holiday. Carmine has come to wish him bon voyage. Joe Toronto is surprised that Coppola would patronize his restaurant because the two dislike each other. Carmine, aware of the problems between the two men, assumes the role of peacemaker and has decided to arbitrate in the matter over lunch. Leonardo Coppola, a tall, slim man with heavy black hair, wearing a white shirt, light-colored slacks, and black shoes. He sits across from Cesare, tucked into the corner between the wire fence that divides off the next-door property and cluster of potted plants sitting against the wall outside of the restaurant. About 2:30, the restaurant phone rings. John Toronto, the 17-year-old son of Joe Toronto, answers it. He listens to the caller, James Galante, who is calling to see if his uncle is still there. He is. All right, I'm just down the block. I'll be right over. By now, little Mo has been complaining about abdominal pains. Carmine suggests he goes home. Moe bids farewell to the men and he leaves. If only he knew just how lucky those cramps would prove to be. It is now approximately 2:40 in the afternoon. While the men are still seated out on the back patio, a blue Mercury Montenegro pulls up in front of the restaurant, double parks, blocking the street. Four men wearing ski masks and carrying pistols climb out of the vehicle. One of them, the driver, a red striped ski mask covering his face. He stays in front of the restaurant, by the car, watching the street, while the other three men head into the restaurant. The first gunman in is carrying a pump-action shotgun. He's tall, slim, dark clothes, his face covered by an olive gray ski mask. Behind him comes a medium-sized man, swinging a double-barreled shotgun, also masked. The third masked man is smaller, but solid, heavily built, with a pot belly. Toronto's son John is the first to see the three men burst inside the front door. The one wearing jeans and a t-shirt barks at him. "Don't you fucking move." The first man stops and says, "Keep your fucking mouth shut." Then he tells his partner, "Hey, Sal, in the back." Constanza, who is also in the restaurant, hears her brother John cry out, "Papa!" Two of the gunmen sprint through the restaurant towards the patio dining area, while John Toronto, he bolts into a storeroom. He knows there's a loaded .38 revolver in there, on a shelf, just inside the door. John runs his hands along the shelf. It's the wrong shelf, feeling frantically for the pistol, as he struggles to reach for it and keep the door closed. The pot-bellied gunman forces the door open and shoots him, twice, in the back. Constanza runs out of the kitchen and collides with her brother John, who is bleeding. He shoves her out of harm's way. She in turn crawls behind the refrigerator and remains frightfully silent. The middle gunman steps out onto the patio. Constanza hears her father Joe Toronto on the back patio suddenly cry out, "What are you doing?" The gunman levels the double-barrel shotgun and fires first. 30 pellets of buckshot catching Carmine as he's rising from his chair. Joe Toronto yells again, "What are you doing? What have you done?" The first shooter jacks his pump action, presses it towards Toronto's chest, and blows him off his feet. The buckshot going through the upper body, leaving the paper wadding from the shell embedded in the flesh. The shot going through the chest, passing through the lungs and severing major blood vessels in the neck and heart, tearing away the side of his face and part of his right shoulder. The gunman then swings away from Toronto, jacking and firing 3 times into Carmine. Tearing lumps of muscle from his right arm, ripping into the side of his face, and blowing out his left eye. As the old man pitches from his patio chair, the killer with the double barrel fires a final blast into his back. Nardo Coppola is pushing himself up and away from the table as the man who has been sitting alongside him pulls out a .30 caliber automatic and shoots him once in the face, then 5 times in the chest, tumbling him off his feet onto the concrete patio. As he sprawls face down, the killer with the pump action steps forward, around the table, racks up a shell, and blasts off the top of his head, blowing Coppola's brains across the patio onto the restaurant wall. He then fires a final round into his back. Constanza Toronto, the 18-year-old daughter of the family, crouches in terror behind a refrigerator in the kitchen area. She stares in horror through the doorway at the carnage taking place on the patio. The noise is deafening. There's gun smoke everywhere. She sees the other leather-jacketed man, the one with dark hair, kneeling behind an overturned table, a .38 revolver in his hand. Only 3 of the 5 men sitting on the concrete patio behind the restaurant were shot at point-blank range that July afternoon. The 3 patrons who were eating inside the restaurant when the gunmen arrived have fled. When the barrage of gunfire ended, the gunmen swiftly ran back through the restaurant and out the front. Their getaway witnessed by nearby storekeepers and neighbors as they watch from windows of 3-story tenements overlooking Knickerbocker Avenue. Across the street at 202 Knickerbocker Avenue, a young woman, Migdalia, she's preparing lunch. She looks out over the street upon hearing the sound of gunfire. She sees the 3 gunmen race out of the building, jump into a car which speeds off down Knickerbocker, turning right onto Jefferson Street, and disappearing up towards Flushing Avenue. The killers escaped in a blue 1979 Mercury that was parked outside the restaurant, with a driver waiting at the wheel. The Mercury, which had been reported stolen in Ozone Park, Queens, abandoned later in the afternoon at Ingram Street and Gardner Avenue in a nearby factory district, less than half a mile from the restaurant. Migdalia Figueroa memorized the plate number. She then sees two tall young men in leather jackets leaving the restaurant. One with dirty blonde hair, holding a handgun. By his side, they quickly move away down the avenue towards the Blue Lincoln Saloon, which they then climbed into and drive away. These two had been in a hail of bullets, yet walk away without a scratch or a speck of blood. Over the next few minutes, police emergency service operators, they received 23 calls reporting that there had been a shooting at 205 Knickerbocker.
I was in an unmarked police car by myself, and I happened to be just a couple of blocks away from Knickerbocker Avenue when I hear this job come over.
After the shooting, curious bystanders gather on Knickerbocker Avenue, a narrow two-way street lined with 3- and 4-story brick and shingle buildings. A pizza parlor and a lawyer's office flank Joe and Mary's restaurant. At 3:20 p.m., as the crowd swells outside the restaurant, the 1st 83rd Precinct patrol car arrives. Police officer John Bobbitt, gun drawn, is the first into the building. Soon, ambulances arrive and Joe and John Toronto are rushed away by ambulance. The son would survive. His father, not so lucky. He would die in transit to Wyckoff Heights Hospital.
785, no record is CIC.
Early before 3 o'clock this afternoon, blue Chevy pulled up here in front of Joe and Mary's restaurant. 3 men got out, wearing ski masks, armed, shotguns, automatic weapons.
And as I get there, I run into the backyard. I'm the first detective there. There was maybe 3 cops. I see the dead bodies.
There are multiple gunshot and shotgun wounds.
As a result of those wounds, would you say the death was instantaneous on both parties?
It would appear that the death was very rapid.
The backyard had been transformed into a gruesome crime scene. Carmine, 69, was blown backwards by the force of the shotgun blast. His chest riddled with bullets. His left eye blown out. His body sprawled in a heap near the table. The patio was splashed with blood and littered with 00 shotgun and pistol shell casings. 19 in all were recovered. The concrete wall to the left of the door was splattered with brain matter, wedged between the garden wall and the dining table. His head cocked over, his right hand resting on his hip. A cigar shot to pieces, but still clenched between his dead lips, lay the body of Carmine Galante. Flies crawling across his face as his blood oozed away down the iron-grated drain in the concrete floor. On his left wrist, his Cartier watch is still ticking. On the table, a half-finished lettuce and tomato salad, some rolls, a peach, and a half-empty carafe of red wine, still standing on the floral-patterned plastic tablecloth. One like it from an adjoining table would later be used to cover Galante's corpse. Leonardo Coppola, age 40, had been hit by shotgun pellets and 6 bullets, several of which had been fired into the back of his head. Coppola's face was blown away by a shotgun blast. he died instantly. Joseph Toronto, the host and co-owner of the restaurant, had been hit with a shotgun blast at point-blank range, was shot on the right side of his head, his right shoulder, blown off. Some would later speculate, based on how they were seated, Galante and Coppola had to have seen the gunman wearing ski masks running towards them. Police officers from the intelligence unit and agents of the FBI started arriving. Soon, the restaurant was crowded with hard-faced men, taking notes and talking quietly amongst each other. The press arrived and photographers were soon scrambling onto adjoining rooftops, anxious to get the best shots of the Carnage Carnival, photos that would fill the New York dailies the following morning.
There are multiple gunshot and shotgun wounds.
And as a result of those wounds, would you say the death was instantaneous on both parties?
It would appear that the death was very rapid.
Okay, let's go. Get out of the way.
My mother called me, screaming, "They killed him, they killed him, they killed him." My mother was destroyed. She was just destroyed because she loved him. She never stopped loving him. She loved this man. It amazed me, but it was true.
I was walking down the stairs when I heard sounds like cherry bombs going off. Scared me to pieces, said Lisa Santiago, whose apartment overlooked the patio. She counted 6 blasts. The proprietor of a business nearby said, "I heard a whole lot of shots. Honest to God, I thought it was a bunch of firecrackers. When I saw the guy with the rifle, I turned my ass around and went right back into my fucking store. I wasn't trying to get shot." Carmine's body was eventually carried out to an awaiting hearse 4 hours after he was gunned down, under the sign across the front of the restaurant, "We give special attention to outgoing orders." Sitting in an apartment on Mulberry Street, he and his team had cameras zoomed onto the frontage of the Ravenite Social Club, the headquarters of Agnello Della Croce, the powerful underboss of the Gambino crime family. The surveillance team spot a tan Lincoln Town car as it pulls up and double parks on the sidewalk. They watch as Bonanno soldier, Anthony Bruno and Delicado, pull a pistol from under the dashboard and tucks it into his waistband before stepping out of the car. other men arrived, including Indelicato's father, Alphonse Sonny Red, and his father's brother, Joseph J.B. Indelicato. Standing in the entrance to the club at the time was Bonanno Consigliere, Stefano Stevie Beef Canone, and Philip Giacone. The Bonanno wise guys were all welcomed and hugged by Delacroce. Early reports on what happened outside the Rabinite that day also noted that Indelicato looked distracted and appeared to be sporting a black eye, walking with a limp. A parabolic microphone aimed through an opening in the lookout window recorded Indelicato. I don't give a fuck. This has got to be the end of it. This whole shit has gotten out of hand. This is it. It ends today. It's done. Dead. According to indictments in the commission case, the hit on Carmine Galante was cleared specifically by Aniello Delacroce in conjunction with Philip Ristelli. Only a few days previously, the other ruling head of the Bonanno family, Rusty Ristelli, imprisoned in the MCC building in Manhattan, having been convicted of the Hobbs Act and criminal antitrust violations in '76, sentenced to 10 years imprisonment, had been inundated with visitors. The day after the hit, detectives visited 73-year-old Angelo Presenzano at his home on South 10th Street in Brooklyn, near the East River. Mr. Presenzano, we don't mean to take up much of your time, but we're here to talk to you about Mr. Galante's murder. How about you two's cocksuckers come back when I'm dead? Slamming the door in their faces. They wouldn't have to wait long, as Presenzano suffered a fatal heart attack and died just a few days later. Police had no idea who was responsible for the killings, but as one detective said as he came out of the restaurant that night, it's inevitable with these guys. Very few of them die in bed. According to Deputy Police Inspector Martin Hayes, the killers were executioners. It's that simple. From the different ammunition recovered, investigators knew the killers had used 5 guns, 2 shotguns, 3 pistols. Meanwhile, the police widened their search for 2 alleged mobsters who were dining with the victims at the time of the murders. The 2, Cesare Bonventure, 28, of 2042 83rd Street, and Baldo Amato, 27, 199 Avenue South, both from Brooklyn, both apparently unharmed. They fled after the killers sped away in their getaway car with their driver lookout man. At the time of the killings, the authorities were not certain whether the two men were accomplices or had gone into hiding out of fear for their lives. Mr. Bonaventure was said to be 6 feet tall, 160 pounds, blonde hair, green eyes, thin build. Mr. Amato, 5'11", 150 pounds, black hair, brown eyes, medium build. Since witnesses had seen only 3 ski-masked intruders, that cast the spotlight on the 2 bodyguards, both of whom have suspiciously disappeared.